I'm Leon Todd for G66. Welcome to another Tuesday Tone Tip. On today's video, I want to revisit a long-standing feature in the amp block of the AXFX3, FM9 and FM3, and that is tone stack swapping, the ability to take an existing amp model that is modeled with its authentic tone stack and change that for any other amp's tone stack. Furthermore, if you've got AXFX3 firmware 28.01, there is a new Plexi Brown tone stack with the same values as Eddie Van Halen's famous Marshall Plexi amplifier, kind of the amp that defined rock guitar sound from the time that it came out, the so-called Brown sound amplifier. So let's start out and I'll show you how you can change the tone stack in existing amp models, and I'll give you a few cool examples that you might want to try out for yourself. So we're going to start with the Plexi 100 watt high model on here. You can see pretty classic Plexi settings on here. Crank up the gain, which would correspond to the volume on the real amplifier. Again, it's a non-master volume amp, so the louder it goes, the dirtier it gets. There's bass turned down low, mids and treble cranked up. Presence I've turned up slightly. I've paired this with my favorite free cab IR that you can grab from the video description and my go-to gold plate reverb. Everything else is stock in the amp block at the moment. This is a Les Paul custom with burst buckers. This is just the sound of rock and roll. Just dialed that into where I like it. If you were, say, specifically chasing the early Van Halen Brown sound, you would need to find an appropriate cabinet IR as well as the end of chain and front of chain processing on there. I just like a cranked up Plexi model with a Les Paul. It's super fun and super satisfying to play. From there, we can go to the preamp tab and you can see the tone stack type parameter down here. Now, all the amp models are going to load up with the default tone stack, which is going to be the authentic tone stack that the reference amp was modeled with. We can click on this and change this to any tone stack that we like. So we could try a Plexi with an Engel tone stack or with an active tone stack or with a Rectifier tone stack. But in firmware 28.01, there is this new Plexi Brown tone stack. So what I'm going to do is just play a few chords with the default tone stack, then we'll swap over to the Plexi Brown. I think the mid pot value is slightly different as well as a few other tweaks. Now, the differences in there are pretty subtle, and to be honest, I feel like you could probably get some of the way just by tweaking these values in here. But it is nice to just have those settings that are going to be authentic to a classic amplifier in there. If you did want to make it a little more brown, a few extra tweaks would be going to the power supply over here, setting the variac to say 75%. You could increase the supply sag a little bit if you want to, and you could say change the power tube, so like 6CA7s, the 6CA7 amp. Sound pretty good for that sort of rhythm. that example, just a little bit of the mono tape delay with a very low mix, a graphic EQ boosting the mids, and of course a script 90 phaser on there. That's a great little recipe. I'm not saying the sounds anything like those early Van Halen records. I would encourage you though, if you're chasing that tone, to start again with one of the 100 watt Plexi models, swap out that tone stack using the preamp type to the Plexi Brown, and then take it from there. We can, of course, do this to any amp we like. So let's start out with something like a Brit 82203. Now, for playing rock and hard rock, this is kind of more my speed. I've added a little bit of depth on the Ideal tab over there, but I haven't touched the tone stack type in there. Let's just hear it at the settings I've got it at the moment. Like that where I had it dialed in, but I did notice with that Plexi Brown tone stack type in there that there's a little bit more bite and aggression happening. I think I'm going to save that to my blocks library as a nice variation on that. Of course, then kicking in something like the CC boost, a T808 boost, or the shred boost in the amp block absolutely takes it over the edge. If you like your Marshall style hard rock tones. Now, you can do this for any other type of amp. For example, if we take something like a deluxe reverb and I play on the neck pickup, and maybe we can swap the tone stack out for something like a Vox tone stack, or we could use the Null tone stack, which totally removes the tone stack from the amplifier in there. So there's going to be a lot less loss going into the power amp, and you get a lot more dirt on there. So let's do this. We'll hear the deluxe verb normal at stock settings, then I'll go over to a Vox style tone stack, which will be nice and chimey, and then I'll actually take the tone stack out completely, and it will sound really cool and cranked. Cool with the Null tone stack on there. Most classic amplifiers have a passive tone stack, so what those tone controls are actually doing is essentially cutting signal. If you use the Null tone stack, well, you're not cutting anything in there, so you're just hitting that power amp raw. And as you can hear with something like a deluxe reverb, a lower wattage tube amp, it gets super nasty sounding in there. I really, really like that. We'll do one more example, and this one is going to be a rectifier. So I've got the Recto 1 red, and we'll swap out the tone stack for a Marshall style tone stack. We won't do the Plexi Brown, we'll do the Brit 800 2203. So we'll just kind of hear this at the stock settings on here, then I will swap over to that JCM 800 tone stack. interesting for a heavier tone in there. You can hear that Rectifier distortion texture in there, but with that bitey Marshall mid-range and upper mid-range character in there. Another classic one, which I won't demonstrate on here, but I will give a shout out to Austin Buddy, who makes some amazing presets, is taking the SV bass models and swapping out the Tonestack type for the Skyline model. I think you might also swap the Tonestack location on that one to, I think, either mid or pre-mid on there, but basically to emulate a Dumble steel string singer, which is a very, very sought after expensive amplifier in the real world. You can go to the Fractal forum and you can also check out Austin Buddy's presets and videos if you want to grab that one with the matching appropriate cabs, and they're dialed in really well. He makes some fantastic presets and is an absolutely lovely man and guitar player as well. For now though, I want to hear your favorite recipes for amp models and tone stack swaps. Let me know in the comments section below. If you have any other questions or suggestions for future Tuesday tone tips, let me know in the comments section as well. I'll put a link to my IR and my blocks library as well if you want to grab those, and I will see you all on the next one. Cheers.